If you're a law firm using ChatGPT, you're probably risking your license without even knowing it. Every word you type into AI tools, being it ChatGPT, Gemini, you name it, is logged and stored on somebody else's server. Client intake forms, confidential PDFs. You might be handing it all over to a company whose privacy policy doesn't care about your attorney-client privilege. I've seen this before. In fintech, where I've built AI under strict banking regulations, one data leak could cost a firm millions and lost trust. For law firms, stakes are just as high. Loss of privilege, malpractice risks, regulatory penalties, and most of all, reputational damage. And here's what most lawyers don't realize. You don't have to avoid AI, you just have to own it. Today, I'll show you how to run a fully private version of ChatGPT right on your hardware, so your client data never leaves your control. Before we dive into the setup, let me be clear. The right solution always depends on your workflows. That's why I start every engagement with an AI risk and workflow compliance audit. Because sometimes the smartest move isn't adding a new tool, but a completely different angle. But if your audit does show that you need a private AI solution, there are two realistic options that you can look into today. The first one is LM Studio. Running your models locally means that your data never leaves your computer. Now, from the confidentiality and GDPR perspective, that box is ticked. But for law firms, regulators expect way more than just no data leaks. They expect you to prove supervision, keep an audit trail, and enforce consistent safeguards across your staff. LM Studio cannot give you all of that. It's fine for individual lawyer usage, but not for a firm-wide use. Now, on the other hand, we have Anything LLM, and that's the safer path for the firms. Let me explain why. Anything LLM goes further. It can also run offline, so on your laptop, but it lets you deploy inside your firm's private cloud, integrate Azure OpenAI, and I explained in my previous video why this is important for law firms, and it can generate audit logs. This means that you not only keep your data under control, but you can also demonstrate compliance with your duty of confidentiality, your duty to supervise, and GDPR accountability requirements. Now that's the difference between tinkering on your laptop and having the system a regulator could approve. LM Studio is great for running on each individual lawyer's computer, and then when you need a firm-wide solution, Anything LLM is a better fit. The best part takes less than 5 minutes to set up, runs alongside your tools, and it doesn't disrupt a single client matter. Now let me walk you through exactly how it works. Anything LLM works for any operating system. I'm going to download it for my laptop, and we're going to open the installer. Drag it into the applications, and we're going to open the installation wizard. Because I have already set up Anything LLM in the past, you can see that I have already ticked through a few boxes in the start, but let's check how do we connect an LLM. As you can see, Anything LLM connects with a lot of different AI providers. Now, I suggest we ignore all of those except for Olama, and I might do a video in the future how to set that up locally. This is just basically a program how to run small open source AI models locally. And we're going to select Azure OpenAI. So let's just select it. I have already set up the credentials, so I can already use it out of the box. But if we check the Azure AI Foundry, which is where we deployed our GPT 4.1 model on our private cloud, this is the target endpoint that we need to use to paste into Anything LLM. We can acquire the API key also from here, and then we select the deployment name. We also select the model here, and the model type is the default one. We are not going to use reasoning model in our case. Now, I am highly biased because I would like to have some control over how the model works, so I'm not going to select the GPT-5. Maybe I can do a video in the future on that as well, but let's see, maybe they will improve it, especially the routing layer in the future as well. Now we save the changes and we have our LLM set up. Now that's it. Now you have a fully private AI solution that works on your laptop and is using the same AI models that are running ChatGPT. Of course, this is not the first step for every firm. Setting up the private AI solution. In my audit, sometimes the best solution is no new tool at all. But if your workflows demand the private AI, this is how you can set it up safely. If you want me to audit your current AI setup and identify the biggest compliance risks, book a free consultation and I'll walk through your workflows personally. Link is in the description below. Okay, now that we have set up our application and we're able to talk to the AI, we're going to create a new workspace. Sample workspace. And I'm going to show you 3 simple but powerful workflows that you can use anything LLM for. First up would be client intake. Imagine this. What happens every day is a new client emails you, attaches a police report, fills out your questionnaire, and you would never paste those into ChatGPT, or at least you shouldn't. That would be a clear breach of privilege. But with anything LLM that is integrated with a model running in a private cloud, you can drop them in safely. I have prepared an imaginary case with some sample documents, and let's quickly go through. So this is an imaginary client outreach. Needs urgent assistance. There's an employment dispute. He was dismissed on February the 2nd with only 2 weeks notice, despite the contract requiring 3 months. He believes that the termination was linked to his complaints about unpaid overtime and hostile treatment by his supervisor. He has attached a termination letter, police incident report, and completed an intake questionnaire. His main concerns are whether the termination was lawful, whether he's entitled to severance under the Dutch law, and how enforceable is his non-compete, and whether he has a claim for workplace harassment. We have some personal information, employment details, termination, other issues. So that's a client intake questionnaire, and here's our sample police report. His supervisor raised his voice, threatened disciplinary action, and became physical. 2 colleagues witnessed the incident. However, no physical assault occurred, and case is referred to HR for follow-up. No criminal charges were filed. If we start a new thread for this specific conversation, and we upload the documents, you can upload them just by dropping them in here or clicking this. However, I have already done that, so I will just include them in our conversation thread. Sample client outreach, sample incident report, and intake questionnaire. I'm moving those to the workspace and I'm saving them. This means that now, during our conversation, the AI will be aware of those 3 documents and that I'm asking about them. Let me quickly copy-paste a pre-prepared, super simplified prompt just for demonstration purposes. We want the potential legal issues, key facts, and next steps to be outlined in 5 simple bullet points. You can see it is giving us the responses based on those documents as we've seen before. This is exactly the John Mitchell that we were reading about. Potential unlawful termination, entitlement to severance damages, everything that he John filed the police report, client's goals are to channel to dismissal, recover severance damages, limit or nullify the non-compete. The next steps, review the termination letter and contract, assess the legality of dismissal and non-compete, evaluate evidence for harassment, and so on. So, as we can see, these are pretty accurate according to what we have uploaded, and the data never leaves your possession. And that's the difference between malpractice risk and compliance. Now I'm going to show you another useful workflow is contract clause search. Now, every lawyer knows the pain of searching through a 60-page contract, looking for that one clause. For this, I have also prepared a document. We're going to remove those from the conversation because we don't need them right now. My remove selected. And we have a sample employment contract that we're going to move to the workspace. We're going to save it and ask it to find all termination clauses. Section 1 commence on duration termination. The employee shall commence employment on January 1st to 24. The agreement will terminate automatically when the employee reaches the statutory retirement age or becomes eligible for pension benefits. Probation period. First 2 months of employment shall constitute the probation period. Redundancy and severance. In the event of the dismissal, employee may be entitled to a statutory transitional allowance in accordance with Dutch Civil Code provisions. The allowance shall be calculated at 1/3 a gross monthly salary per year of service. So this is definitely something that you might be interested in according to the case. Every relevant clause here was pulled up in seconds, and your confidential files never left your possession. Now for the third workflow, we're going to take it up a level. We're going to fetch some information directly from the websites. We're going to store that information locally on our laptop, and then we're going to ask questions about it. And it's going to be super easy. Okay, so now we want to know how OpenAI's policy compares with anything LLM's policy when it comes to data sharing, use, and retention. Now, I'm going to add two sources here. First, OpenAI's privacy policy. And we're going to fetch the information from the website. Okay, privacy policy is here. We're going to do the same with the documentation of anything LLM, what we're using right now. We're fetching that, same process, super fast. Now both sources are loaded into my internal knowledge base. I'm going to select both of them, this one, and move them to the workspace. I'm going to save and embed and continue. OpenAI collects logs, usage, device data. Retention period is not always specified, may be retained as long as needed for service, security, legal, or research purposes. It's very broad. On the other hand, it's typically self-hosted. As I mentioned, it can be deployed within your private cloud or locally on your laptop, and then data is stored locally wherever it is deployed, either on your laptop or on your private cloud. In both cases, you're in control of the data. No default cloud retention, unless you configure it. No sharing with third parties, used only as specified by the developer. So however you want it. On the other hand, we are using data to providing and improving services, other things, conducting research, preventing fraud abuse, to improve model. Now let me show you a really powerful feature that you can use with anything LLM. Let me start a new thread and show you one simple thing. Let's say you want to know about GDPR enforcements this year. What we're going to do is we're going to configure a web search. A very powerful one, SOC2 compliant one, and the one that doesn't retain your data. We click Agent Skills and we turn on web search. Now, why is this important? Models are trained on the vast internet, and their training cuts off at a certain point. It takes a long time and an incredible amount of resources to train them. So models are not up to date with the knowledge of yesterday and today. That's why you can tune in web search, and EXA is powering one of the most powerful applications today out there. So it's much more powerful than Google search. It has zero data retention. It is SOC2 certified, and it's used by some of the biggest enterprises that require complete data privacy and compliance, such as Databricks, AWS, Cognition, Cursor, and others. We just configured the API key, and we can already use it in our conversation. Let me show you real quick how that looks. We select our agent that now has web search enabled, and we ask it to summarize the top 3 GDPR enforcement actions of 2025 and their impact on data processing. We can see that the agent is using EXA search, and it found already 10 results. That is reviewing right now. Vodafone Germany, 45 million euro fine. We have Italy versus Luca Incorporated for replica chatbot case. And we have France versus Solocal Marketing Services, almost €1 million fine. So key takeaways would be third-party and processor oversight is now as critical as tactical controls. AI and biometric processing faces heightened scrutiny. Valid consent is paramount in commercial prospecting, and documented compliance, audits, impact assessment, and privacy by design are essential. So you can do that search immediately from your anything LLM. See this live enforcement actions, penalty amounts, and compliance trend, all sourced from up-to-the-minute legal news. Everything I've shown you so far works perfectly for the individual lawyer, but firms have higher obligations. Once multiple people are using AI, you need audit trails, so you can prove how a document was handled if a regulator ever asks. You need supervision controls. Partners must be able to see how junior associates are using the AI system. And you need consistency. You need the same safeguards across every lawyer and paralegal, not everybody running their own copy. And that's where the firms usually get stuck. The system needs to move from one laptop to the whole practice. And that requires a systematic and the right setup. And that's where I come in. And I don't just install the software, that's the easiest part. I'm making sure that your firm has the technology, the policies, and the training in place so you can stay compliant while you scale. Because a private AI tool without audit logs or staff training is not really safe. it's another risk waiting to happen. So let's bring it all together. Number 1, setup. You saw how a private version of ChatGPT can run inside of your firm in 5 minutes without the data ever leaving your control. Number 2, workflows. We've covered legal tasks that normally put you at risk if done through ChatGPT. Client intake from confidential PDFs, contract clause searches, and comparing privacy policies. All that done locally with privilege intact. And number 3, scaling. For the whole firm, it's not just about the tool. It's about audit logs, supervision, and consistent safeguards across every lawyer and paralegal. That's where most firms stumble, and that's why setup plus training matter. The bottom line here, you're not gambling with client data anymore. And this is not about the tool. It's an example of how you can use AI but still protect privilege, avoid GDPR fines, and meet your duty to supervise. Most law firms are still uploading sensitive files to public AI tools without thinking. You don't have to. You've now seen an example of private, compliant alternative. If you're worried about AI data exposure in your firm, and you should be, don't start with the tools. Start with an audit. In 2 weeks, I'll show you exactly where your staff might be already using AI unsafely and whether a private setups like this make sense for your practice. Click below to book a legal AI risk and workflow compliance audit, and let's make sure your firm can benefit from AI without massive fines or even worse, reputational damage. If this video helped you see light at the end of the compliance tunnel, like, subscribe. For practical AI advice that doesn't risk you getting sued. See you in the next one.